Smallworld at its heart is a battle game in the same general sphere as Risk, although I hesitate to even compare it to Risk. Any serious gamer will know that it's quite different on a number of levels. But I also know that it appeals to a lot of sort of hardcore Risk fans. So if you know a few gamers who really aren't too into the gaming scene yet, who really like Risk, this would be kind of a nice way to segue them. So anyway, Smallworld. It's a battle game. You win by collecting the most gold. The game ends after a set number of rounds, which is determined by the number of players. You also use a different board based on the number of players. So it's a 2 to 5 player game. For this particular tutorial, we'll be using the 3-player board, even though I rarely play with 3. On the 3-player board, you can see that it lasts a total of 10 turns. After the 10th turn, you score. The person with the most money wins. One clever mechanic is that money is kept hidden. You use these little gold chips. They come in 1, 3, 5, and 10 point denominations, and you keep them secret, and it's important that you do so because otherwise the game becomes a little bit too much screwed leader. You can keep track in a general sense of what your opponents have, and you should, but you can never count them, which is definitely a helpful thing. I would not house rule it out. So in Smallworld, you play on a sort of not just global scale, but you sort of play over a long span of time. You're sort of watching the rise and decay of various sort of fantasy races. And as a player, you get to control a few of these races and sort of watch them rise, watch them build an empire, and then watch them go into decline. At the beginning of the game, every player will choose a different race. There will always be 6 available to choose from, and they'll be sort of lined up alongside the board. When one race is chosen, it is taken, that player controls it for until he basically declines it, and then another race is pulled off the stack and revealed. One cool balancing mechanic is that the races, actually you have a race and power combination, which I'll explain in more detail later, and some of the race and power combinations just have more synergy and are a little stronger than others. The cool self-balancing mechanic here is that if you want to purchase a race power combo that is lower, in other words, that has been passed over more times, you have to put money on the ones above it. In other words, ones that are not lucrative will, at a certain point in the game, become lucrative because they'll continue to get passed over, they'll continue to have money stacked on them, and then when you choose a race, choose that particular race, not only will you not have to pay much money, since there'll be nothing above it, but you will also gain the amount of money put on it. So it's a very nice little balancing factor. You're constantly weighing that in your decision of which race power combination to buy. So once you all have your initial starting race and power, you will begin your conquests. So you will enter the board on any space along the edge of the board, or adjacent from the water. So you can come in from any sort of water segment, excluding the central lake. And on your turn, you'll make a series of conquests. Each conquest, you'll have a certain number of units based on the race and power. So if I have a 5 power and a 6 race, I'll have 11 units to work with. So let's say I have 11 of these giants here. I will start placing them on a square, and then I will sort of just move out from there, taking more and more territory. You take territories, it's very simple and mathematical. You don't have to worry about rolling dice. This game it does include a die, but it is used only for one small facet of the game. The core battle mechanic is just having more guys than your opponent. You don't have to worry about rolling dice, there's very little chance there. So you use units to conquer regions at a cost of 2 units, plus 1 additional unit for every sort of obstacle in your way. This includes enemy units, this includes lost tribes, which spawn at the very beginning of the game. It sort of represents the guys that came before you can start. It also includes things like mountains or other structures that are built by players. So mountain spaces, for instance, they count as an additional one for conquest purposes. Basically, the more units you have to spend to take a territory, the less you can do on your turn, the less you can take, and the less money you make. Because every territory you control at the end of your turn is worth 1 point. You collect that money at the end of your turn once you finish your conquests. You also get money from a variety of sources built into the powers and race abilities. There are tons of them with the expansions we have, which we have several. There are a lot of race and power combinations, which really adds to replayability. We'll get to that in the review. So once you've conquered regions to your liking, you will declare the end of your turn. You'll make a final conquest in which you can sort of make an attack that you can't actually afford. So let's say I have 3 units and want to take a space with 2 people on it. Now normally I would need 4 units for that, 2 plus 2. But if I want to chance it, I can make one sort of chancy attack at the end of my turn, the final conquest. I roll a die. The die is half blank, has a 1, a 2, and a 3 on it. So you add that number of sort of temporary units to the units you have. That determines whether or not your conquest is successful. This adds just a little bit of luck. We've actually house ruled it out. I would recommend that, but not very strongly. It doesn't have a huge impact on the game. After that, you score points. Like I said, 1 point for every territory you control, plus other bonus coins for different factors. Basically, you go through turns like this. Everyone takes a turn, and once everyone's taken their turn, that's the end of the round. At the beginning of your subsequent turns, you may choose to go into decline, meaning you can flip over your race banner to reveal a sort of black and white version, and your power, generally speaking, drops off, although there are a few that are persistent. At that point, you take all of your units, and you leave 1 in every space that you control, and you flip them over as well. So here's the color side of the giants. Here's the black and white in decline version. You leave them on the board, and they can no longer make any new conquests. They can no longer use their powers. Usually they don't have any racial abilities after that, although there are a few persistent ones of those too. And they basically just are placeholders for you. They keep bringing in income off the territories they control, but people can usually just take them out pretty quickly because it's 1 per space. So yes, so once you go into decline, then you basically give up that turn. You may not make new conquests, you still score for what you have, and then on your subsequent turn, you pay for a new race power combo, coming fresh from anywhere on the board, on the outside at least. And it's as if you're starting again. It's as if you're back to the first turn with a new race that can conquer new regions. You don't necessarily want to go in the same part of the board. In fact, you usually want to spread out. And make new conquests, score more points. You continue scoring for your decline guys until they're gone. If you want to go into decline again later with the second race, you get rid of the first in decline race. I mean, you can always have 1 active and 1 in decline race. I think that's about it. Am I missing anything major here?
Ceding territory, perhaps?
Yes, very good, thank you. At the beginning of your turn, you may choose to cede territories. This is not too often done, but it can be very tactical, especially for certain races. When you cede a territory, you basically just pull all your units out of it, and you can redeploy as you see fit. So unlike Risk, where redeployment at the end of your turn, that tactical freedom is important, in this game it's very easy. At the beginning of your turn, you can redeploy as you see fit. You can pull any number of guys out of territories. You can put them into a nice new stack. And you can actually do it at the end of your turn too. So you can redeploy to bolster your defenses how you see fit. Oh, and I mentioned this earlier, but anytime you have a unit that gets attacked, anytime you have a territory that gets attacked by an opposing player, you get a battle loss. In the battle loss, you lose 1 of your units from that space. That's sort of the impetus to decline. You lose 1 of your units, they are killed, put back in the box, and then you have 1 less to work with on subsequent turns. So if enough people attack you repeatedly, you won't be able to keep your pushes going. It will behoove you to decline. So that's how you play Smallworld. We will tell you all our thoughts about it in the review.